Oh yeah, you're in the studio with the live local artist. The Bronco busting screen print paint kit, everything that you need is on the table. And as you can see, the Bronco Buster has a lot of beautiful colors. As always, the hardest part has been taken care of for you. Each 11 by 14 canvas has an original screen print design, hand applied by one of the house artists at Live Local Artist Studios. The color palette for this painting has been carefully selected by the artist. All you need to provide is a little water and some inspiration. Today I've placed my canvas on my French easel. It's the one that I use in the field on all my other videos. If you haven't had a chance, follow me at Live Local Artist on YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, and all the social medias. First, let me introduce you to the colors we're going to be using. In the package you received the spectrum of the color palette that we'll be using. You can see it's got a brown, red, a dark blue, a medium blue, a yellow, and a white. You also have in your package one or two brushes depending on which version you bought, and that's a medium shading brush and a round for the details. And for your mixing your colors, portable palette, it is not essential. You can use a paper plate or a piece of glass or plastic, anything that you want. I like this. It makes me feel at home. Now focusing onto our own masterpiece here, the first thing I would like to do is to open up the red on my palette here. It's a nice bright red, and I'm going to take just the tip of my round, and we're going to sketch in the distant landscape just right along the bottom. I'll start right underneath the hoof so I can make sure I have that space, and it's just straight red, not mixing anything. I don't need a palette. I don't even need to wet my brush. And I'm going to put a little peak here. Just, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just establishing a guideline for later. And I'm going to make it like a mesa, like the original one here. So it's going to be come up, flat top. Just going to shade that all in. And to help that color spread, I might touch the tip of my brush into the water there to help get into those many little grooves and the canvas textures. I'll put another peak here, little landscape, some landmarks to go by. You can do anything you want there. You can make it as flat or as hilly as you'd like. I'm pushing my landscape way down to the bottom to give it a feeling that this Bronco has caught some major air and our cowboy is in a perilous situation out in the West Texas landscape. Now just tip of my brush into the water, and it's gonna carry that around all the way back across. No big deal. And that, my friends, was just the red right out of the package. My next step, continuing with the landscape and the distant horizon, I'm not even cleaning my brush, but I'm not smearing it around either. I'm just taking up a little bit of that brown, and I'm going to run that across the red and let it kind of just do whatever it wants, back and forth. That's shadow, earth and shadow. I'll get a little bit more of this brown here. Just tipping it in there just a little bit. I'm even giving you the POV, the artist POV. And it's alright if it kind of goes beyond the original drawing of your landscape. It adds more character to the contours of the earth. Putting that shadow in there. You're wondering why we started off with just red. Well, it's just the clay that makes up our dried landscape out here. and that's going to peek out through the colors that we put on and just give a feeling of that red earth. See how that kind of feels much better. So I'm going to clean off my brush now, and I recommend that you do too. I want to wait for that paint to dry, so I'm going to continue painting, but in another area of the canvas. So I'm going to work on the shirt, get some red out just a little bit, brush it on to his shirt, just straight out of the tube. I'll worry about blending and highlights and shadows and little details at a later time. Once it's dry, I can do that stuff. But right now I'm just going to put a base color in, and it's alright if it's a little spotty because the light is hitting it in different ways, and I can always come back and touch it up. But I'm just going to spread some color. I'm tickling the canvas with the tip of the brush. You can see one dip is not enough, so I'm going to get a little bit more color on my brush and bring it around to his arm here. And I'm going to continue tickling the canvas, trying to get into all those little pinholes that are occurring from the texture of the natural canvas there. That's just a natural canvas texture. Fibers woven create little pockets where you have to work the paint into them. People ask me, why do you hold the brush away from the back? That's just so odd. It's a learned reflex, and I find it provides me with the ability to see what my bristles are doing down on the canvas. So that's why I do it. I recommend you try it. It takes practice. If you've got a grip up on the ferrule of your brush, go right ahead. Paint how you want. It's all good. Next step, we're going to open up our yellow. Well, here's one thing I'll do first. I'll clean off my brush, but I'm not going to clean it off in the water. I'm just going to rub that red, whatever wants to come off, into the chaps, because leather has red in it. Just going to scoop out a little bit of that yellow and brush it in there where the highlights will be. Brush that in all the way. And I'm just working my brush in a circular pattern, and I'm still working with just this one medium bristle round that you should have in there. Picking up my brown, just a tap of whatever is on the lid will do, and I'm going to work from the back where the shadows are closest to the horse, and I'm going to work into my highlights, brushing in and going in a circular pattern, and just let it tortoiseshell. By that I mean just kind of let it be a nebulous blend of colors, kind of like a Rothko or some modernist knockoff. Using those bristles to blend that around. If you like modern expressionism, within the chaps is where you have your opportunity to explore your motifs and your whatnots. So there's a nice little simple way to give the chaps a, and if you want to add a little bit more of the brown to it and go around the edge and create a stitched feel, a shadow, just the tip of your brush along the pant, like so. I feel like I need some more brown around here, like it's going to be more shadowy as he's leaning over the upper part of his thigh. So I'm going to do that right in here. And then I'll take some of this brown and just straight out of the tube there, or the reservoir, onto the darker parts of the saddle. That's going to be creating just ending just a tat of brown right there in the belt or the gun holster. Whoops. And what I'll do now is I'm going to brush whatever brown is in my bristles around the underside of his sombrero. My next step is going to be with the paint horse. The unique markings of this paint horse would make it distinguishable from any herd. Although you don't have to paint this particular horse, I'm going to show you how to achieve the variations and the tonal values that will help you to create your perfect pony. The exact pattern is not something that you need to worry about. You can paint your horse any manner that you like. You can look at reference photos, or you can follow along with me. With the brown just straight out of the reservoir there, I'm going to sketch in one of the spots on my pony's back that goes around to the, sketch that in just lightly. And then on the back of his neck, I've got another distinguishing mark. Rub that in. Another forelegs there in my original paint. I've got them painted in. A little bit of white comes across the front breast, and I'm going to just paint that in. And it might seem a little just redundant, all the brown, but we do come back, and that's why I keep it a little light with the application of the pigment at this round of the painting, because I am coming back with other colors to give the feeling of the actual fur patterns. They've got different highlights, and you'd just be surprised all the colors that come into the simple patterns of nature. What you think is one color is actually made up of so many nuanced shades that they really do recall or command a little bit more introspection or observation, rather. And I'm just following along the same paint patterns that I used before. A little brown up here. There's a lot of brown everywhere. It's a Western painting. What do you expect? Load up the brush one more time. Let's get the main part of the mane. The mane. Oops. Watch out for the ears. We've got some color in the ears. That's all right. There's no mistakes. You can always paint out errors. Paint over what you would consider mistakes. Might not be at all. Just let it rest. So far that's pretty good. Now here's a little sample of what I like to do. Is I hardly even clean my brush during these episodes, and I just dipped it into the red, and I'm just like scribbling right into the. I'm not trying to fill up all of it with red, just whatever I feel. Just a little here, just marks. Scribble scrabble here. I'm gonna put some on his boot. On the underside for sure. It helps create a deeper, richer brown. Putting it in the shadowy areas of the. I'm not touching the bullet belt because I want to do something special there. All right. Now they're feeling a little red heavy, those spots. So I'm going to get a little bit of that dark blue that I sent you. I'm going to rub that in. Some spots here. Just on the underside for sure. It's very shadowy kind of areas of the horse. The horse is behind. Rub that in. Circular pattern. That water helps to blend those colors, so you don't want it dripping. It's not dripping all over my canvas, so I do have that going for me. But even if it were, it wouldn't be the end of the world. So I could get real sloppy and show you how to pull it around, but I don't know if I will on this episode. But if you've seen me paint before, it gets pretty dirty, and I always seem to bring it back around. So trust me when I tell you, if you use too much water while you're trying to blend, don't worry, don't panic. Just let it go. We'll come back. We can always paint it. That's what I'm going to show you with the belt, because I feel like in this particular screen print, some of the detail was lost, and I want to just bring it back. And this little method I'm going to show you there can be applied to any area where you feel like you made a mistake. So stay tuned. We'll get to that in just a moment. The back inner side front leg there, that one that's far away, I'm just going to get a little water on my brush and brush some of that shadow down. I'm going to do that on this other side here, since it is all in shadow. Underside. There's no pure white, so if you just run that all over the place, you're going to be all right. It doesn't always have a big effect. Sometimes it has no effect, it feels. That's that dark blue that's coming off my brush. I haven't really cleaned my bristles, and I'm just going to spread that around. I'm going to take advantage of that, because even on a white pony, the individual hairs cast shadows upon themselves, so that's going to give you an off-color white. Depending on what kind of light the horse is in, will depend on which side of the spectrum that we're going towards. And because we're obviously at a sunset, we're going to have more blue in the hues, so I don't mind that little splurge of blue that came out of my brush before I went to clean it properly. And you can see how it separates the horse from the stark white background. And after you clean your brush, we're going to take the white straight from the tube of white. Try not to get too much onto that landscape, but you're going to basically, you're painting right along it, right alongside. You're outlining your landscape with white, your horizon there, your landscape. Just going to put white, straight white. And so you can get a close-up of what that looks like. Just taking my brush, straight white, right out of the tube there, and I'm just cutting in my landscape. Maybe double width the brush there, kind of cut away from, create a little distance, a buffer zone, so to speak. At some point the sky meets the earth, and the two are distinct and separate. So that's what this is about. Not to mention, if you've ever noticed along the horizon line, it's always white. The atmosphere is always white. Well, whitish. The color's got more white in it than the rest of the sky. How's that? With whatever's going on in the sky, as you get closer to the horizon line, painter trick, add white. Create a little distance. Make it believable. And I'm being careful not to get it into my red. But I have created a little bit of separation between the ground and the sky with just white. And while it's still wet, I will blend in my yellow. And so what I'll do is just going to go straight into the yellow here, begin in the middle, and work my way out to either direction. And quickly establish that line of yellow. Maybe, like I said, 2 brush widths worth of that pure yellow. It's alright if you cross the lines of your horse. It's okay. To me, it makes it believable. You gotta work fast because that color dries. Like, I'm finding that white has already dried on me down below. But I'm gonna try and blend anyways and pick up some of those thick areas of white and blend it up. And like I said, it doesn't bother me if it crosses lines, and I try to to keep it clean, but you know, lines get crossed. I can always come once again from the bottom, working up. And so now on your plate or palette, you're going to mix some of your red with your yellow and with your white. And I'll show you on my paper palette here what I'm talking about. I'm going to start with yellow, and I'm going to take a good amount of yellow. The red doesn't take nearly as much red. As you can see, I've just barely touched my bristle in there, and that's plenty of red. I have switched my brush, and I'm working now with my flat, with the flat shader. And I've got now some white, mixing that with my red there. And first I'm creating, and that's plenty of color there. You can see that blend, taking that across as quickly as I can. And like I said, it's alright if it gets into your horse's leg there, but I'm trying not to. So I'm not going completely crazy, but I'm not stressing myself out to where it takes forever to get this paint down. You don't have much time with acrylic. It does dry relatively quickly. It's easy to clean up, but you do have to mix your color and move with it, because it's very difficult to mix another batch identical to a previous one. So I like to mix plenty or not even worry about it. Loosen up. That's what I tell my friends, just loosen up. So I'm going to dip my brush in some water to keep that pigment alive and going. And now I'm coming up with just a little bit. I didn't really clean my brush, but I picked up some more of that red, and I'm blending it down. First I'm going across to make sure that my entire sky gets that red. It's really pinkish now, or a light form of orange of some sort. A salmon color, really. And I'm blending that up and down wherever it wants to go. Circular motion with my brush, and you can see the beautiful transition that it's beginning to create there, like a true sunset. That's almost enough to make me want to stop, but we can't, because there's so much more to do. So I'm going to take a little bit, I'm going to clean my brush off. You can see me doing that here. Look at that yellow on there. Clean that ferrule off real good. Use my paint rag to pat my brush off on. I'm going to take a little bit of red, laying it down here. Oh, that's a lot more red than I did last time. Red is an extremely powerful color. I probably won't use all of it at any point. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of that medium blue that I sent you. A good scoop of it, and put it out in the universe. Let's see, I'll take that blue, a little bit of that red there, and that's going to make a purple that I'm going to mix with my white. And that purple will be the next layer of my sky, my sunset and sky. Going to go all the way across. Painted mine to the horse's legs and the horse's ass. Blending that up. That whole area will be kind of a shadowy, purpley sky. You can see how I've created a pretty distinct band of purple there from that orange that was previously there. And I'm cleaning my brush and I'm blending that down. Uh-oh, look at that drip. Drip, drip, drip. Don't worry about that drip. And I'm just blending that pigment down, blurring out that hard line of the purple band. And I'm blending that down. spreading that pigment around. If you understand how the pigment is suspended within the binders and of the original paint from the factory, you could use that knowledge to manipulate the perceived colors on your canvas. They're not quite as translucent as oil paints. They don't have the luminous quality, but they do thin out with water, and you can apply glazes of pigment to a degree. And like I said before, you don't have to let that drip bother you. It might be early enough to wipe it out. Oh, look what it did. Created some issues down there with pigment. It wiped away the pigment there. Well, we're gonna blend. All I did was wet my brush, and that's not working so well, so we gotta actually panic. Time to panic! It's time to panic! No, I'm just working bristles, working my brushes around. If that doesn't work for me at this point, I don't worry too much about it. You see, I've got my palette here. I'm gonna get a little red, a little yellow. I'm gonna mix that over here. I'm gonna touch that in there. See? No big deal. No big deal. And that's done. And then with whatever colors I got, I'm just gonna drop some all over the place. I love that color. Okay, so the next thing I was gonna do is get a little bit of this white here. Show you what I'll do with that white. Get it off the lid, whatever's on the lid. I don't need a whole lot, but I'm just taking whatever's on the lid, putting it down. And whatever's on my brush here, I'm starting in the middle of the purple. Oh no, it's got a lot of yellow in it, but that's okay because sunlight is yellow. And we're gonna just blend that around. It's the sky, it's the atmosphere, it's doing its atmospheric magic. That's what keeps us looking up. In between. It's brushing that around, brush. Blend that in and down. It's those harsh lines that we want to work away. We want to soften them up. Brushing up. Now going straight to that medium blue that I sent you, and I'm putting a large area down. But with my round shader, I can get into the detailed areas. I'll work around the contours of my cowboy with my round shader, and then with my larger flat brush, I'll cover all the larger areas of paint. Sometimes I don't even make the switch, but I'm telling you so that you can best utilize your brushes, get the most out of them. The flats are good for spreading color, and the rounds are really good for getting into areas where the flats are just too fat and clumsy. Although if you're good with your brushes, you can learn how to hold it at different angles and roll your brush so that you can almost get through a painting using a single good brush. Oh no, we're out of paint on our palette. That's okay. I've sent you plenty of paint in your kit, so you just go back and get it. Now I'm not like globbing it on, dropping it everywhere. I didn't send you that much paint, but for somebody who's interested and really wants to make this painting the way I'm demonstrating, you've got plenty of material there. So go right back to your, and I got a little dirty with my paint. You can see some red there. Well, don't get so excited next time. That's all I can say. And if these particular shades don't do it for you, by all means, add on the color. There are so many colors made in acrylics that they're so easy to pick up at your local art store that you should not hesitate to pick up a better brush, a thinner brush. I've sent you the materials that I use. They're not the most expensive quality brushes, but they are enough that I use mine over and over again until they absolutely are just toast. And for me, that means that I get a lot of wear and tear out of my brushes. I use my brushes, and I'm not afraid to use them because I didn't spend so much on it that there are some brushes out there that are $20, $30 brushes, and I'm not buying those, and I'm certainly not sending them to you. But you're welcome to order them online or go to your favorite art supply store and pick them up. You might find they really help you, that you might find the inspiration that you needed. I can tell you tales of how when I was younger and in the art classes at the public school, intermediate schools, I was not an enthused student because the quality of the materials that we were using did not inspire me. There was something within me that knew that, well, at least I wasn't satisfied with the response that I was getting from the brushes, the paints, the canvases. We didn't use canvases. We painted on manila paper so that it would fall apart on us. But anyways, I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you that the quality of the materials has an effect on the outcome of the art. Now here's some of that darker blue. It's like a Prussian or phthalo blue, or maybe it's a processed cyan. Whatever color I sent you, you put the darker blue up here at the very top. Like that. And by now, you see, I told you I should have like switched to my fat flat for this. I'd have been done by now. Here we go. Fat flat coming in. Get it wet. Spread that color around. See, water is like the medium for acrylics. The medium that works best. Taking that, blending it into cutting in around the hat, the sombrero, even down low. I'm just gonna blend. Cut in around my cowboy. Circle pattern is what I'm using. Blending all of this together. Almost there, buddy. Just keep it going all the way to the end. Get all those pinholes filled with color. Come in around your cowboy. It's all right if you cross that line. We're not done with the cowboy. We're always going to cut that back and feel much better about that. Nice sky. All right, I can see it. I can see it happening. We've got a few pinholes to work out. Not bad though. And so, like I said before, I wasn't really happy with the way that the print around the gun, the bullet belt, whatever you want to call it, the bandoleros, where that came out. And I'm cleaning my brush here. It's got a lot of blue in it. Blue is a difficult color to get out. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to paint it with white, just like each of those little slots where you would put your bullet. I'm just painting with white first, just to create a little bit more clarity there, because the black lines that get jumbled up, and it's hard to distinguish the belt buckle from. So I'm repainting that with white. I'm letting the black serve as the shadows from which I'm going to pull the color from. Now on my palette, I'm mixing a little bit of red and yellow there, that's given me like a softer brown that I can use as highlights on areas of the saddle there. And if I want it to go darker, I just take the red and put it in to the shadowy areas, places where leather meets leather. I'm gonna get some of this mixed with the white that was on the palette. I'm gonna put it down here underneath the hat. And on the top side, little red came through there. That's all right. It's all right. I'm gonna rub some color onto the spots of my horse. Highlights that it's catching the waning lights of the sun in its hair. Just little strokes here or there that deposit a little pigment. Really add up. They really create the nuances of real life, you know. Just the way that color bounces off of objects. And then for the sombrero, I'm going to bring a little bit of white to my palette. It's on the tip of my brush here. It's not much white. I keep it in I use it sparingly. Cover it when I'm not using it. I want it to last. And so I'm touching the highlights of the sombrero with that color I mix underneath the top here, just little places along the edge where it's catching some of that light, that ambient lighting from the world. And then I'll take a little red, mix that in, get the deep color, get a little bit of that blue there, create a shadow. We're gonna, beginning at the cowboy's ear and head, work it out. It's the undershadow of the sombrero. It's the sombra of the sombrero. Sombrero meaning the shade hat. Shadow caster, maybe? It's a shadow casting hat. Keep you in the sombra. And that's looking pretty good. I might bring a little bit more white to this lighter color here. Touch that crest up there a little bit more. I'm not putting down straight white. I'm mixing it with this tannish, brownish color to create that feeling of the hat. And then I'm gonna do a couple of those highlights along the chap line here. Taking my white, mixing it with, and it's just subtlety. Subtlety is the king factor here. Touch my brush to my water, and I'm gonna come back in, catch the underside of the boot. I just kind of create a little shadow there. I'm gonna do something crazy with the sky. I'm just getting some white, and I got a little dirty from the blue that was on there previously. Like I said, that blue is hard to clean out. I thinned out my brush by dipping it in my water, and I'm just brushing it circular pattern, really thin, leaving a very thin layer of that white pigment down, hopefully to create, you know, a cloudy, a nebulous kind of feeling as far as the gradation of the sky and how it's going from light to dark. Just wanted a little bit more blending going on here. Very cool. I'm liking it. We'll continue that up around here. The blue is pretty dry, so it's not really creating a new color. It's just laying down a watery film of white trace pigments onto that already established blue background. If any of that makes sense, you're right on. You're going to be all right. So we have made some progress here today, folks. And now we are not going to stop. We are going to continue. I'm taking my round shader, after giving it a thorough cleaning and a wiping off on my paint rag. We're back to the palette here, and we've got, let's assess here, we've got some dirty white with a lot of blue in it, some yellowish stuff going on, some red. That dark color there is actually the blue mixed with the red, so it makes a purple, like a drawing color. We're going to take a little bit of that. We're going to, use it on some areas, like the gun handle. We're just going to put the shadow on that, like so. And then the reins, draw out the rein there. Underneath the hat, create a little bit of deeper shadow. Detail out the brim and the bucket. I'm still going to go with that dark drawing color that I've made there. It's actually like the darkest shadow. So I'm going to put it in where the saddle meets the seat. And then just a little bit the bullet harness. And then wherever I see pinholes, I might just try and tap them out with that. At the hoof, but it's getting dry, so there's not much pigment coming off. But I'm going to just touch it, just the tip of that to the water, and see how that reactivates that, and I'm able to deposit that color again. Now, painting in hoofs. Lightly on the ones on the outside. A little bit of shadow down on his face being cast from the sombrero. What's the purpose of the hat if it doesn't do its job? And that was what we did there with that color. Now what I'll do is I'm going to mix up, I see I didn't even really clean my brush, but I'm picking up some of that yellow and I'm bringing the white to that, the cleanest part of the white I could, and just a touch of red from the outside there. And we're making ourselves a highlight for the leather. You'll see how effective it is once you put it down. So we're going to start at the gun hoist, put a spot there, and then just a dot where the light is catching each of those bullet holsters. At the edge of our saddle and along this saddle horn there. We'll get a little highlight on the shoulder of our horse and on the back of his neck, and some of these long hairs out here will get some of that treatment as well. Blend it in around the furs, and then we're even going to touch the bobo, the horse's bobo over here with that brownish mix that you made there. All right, I'm going to get a little bit more of that white because I want to make it more opaque. And right in there, same pattern, get some red, get a little blue, throw it in there, mix it with the yellow. We're making a lighter, not the exact same shade of brown, but one that we can apply in the same areas to look like a transition. On the reins, we'll catch the highlights there, blend them in. The boot, definitely going to get some highlights on the boot there along the sides like that. Now there's little, we can get a little bit more of that red. That was actually quite a bit. We're going to clean that around and then go straight for the white, get some more white. Well, that's kind of like a bluish gray with a tinge of red going on there. I'm mixing that yellow in, trying to find a sunny day. Well, that's what happens when you use that dirty white But we're going to use that for this old weathered cowboy's skin here. Leather, sun dried. Oh my gosh, I forgot the spot on the horse's face. So I got to get some of that red. Just clean my brush off too. It's ready to move on. Just gonna scribble that in. Get some of that yellow. And then just follow the contours of the horse's face. I'm gonna leave a little bit of white there so I can play with his eye. Do a little more details there than I did in the first one. The original, the OG. Taking that brown because that deep color and just spreading it around because it's what I like to do when I'm working with these acrylics. Just layer those colors up. That's awfully red, isn't it? It's because I don't have any dry blue on my palette. I will adjust all that, but in mathematical terms, what you do to one, you do to the other. So I'm going to spread that red around different areas. Little shadows here. The shirt of our caballero. And you can see here how I've got blue in my white, and you just gotta be careful about that. All right, so I put that white onto my palette. It's here, and I'm gonna use it to do what? I forgot. We'll just put some on my pony here. Just give some white highlights. It helps. It'll add up. Give it the feeling of fur. All those millions of individual fur strands. Catching light, reflecting light, casting shadow, catching shadow. It's all happening. It's all happening. There's no way I could depict each individual circumstance, but I can definitely generalize. And so that's what I'm doing. That's what this process is. It's a series of generalizations, assumptions that I make and take. All for you. Well, I didn't like the way that one finished out, so I'm going to touch that right there. And I see pinholes. I see a white ear that needs to be colored. Now, a couple of loose ends to tie up, but we're almost there, folks. I'm going to open up my dark blue. I'm going to brush in some up here. My brush is wet. It's not dripping all over the place, but the water content is certainly helping move that pigment around. One thing I wanted to do, we're going to do it together. I'm going to take a little bit of this red right here, and I'm going to mix it with this blue. I want a darker shade up at the top. Getting a little bit more of that. Maybe that's too much. I'm getting lazy. I should have used my palette, but I'm just showing you how I work sometimes, you know? I get crazy. We're going to run that over the top of the canvas there, because I mixed a good amount of it. I'm going to use it so that way they can, if anybody says, hey, why didn't you paint the canvas? Why didn't you paint the canvas edges? You paint the edges. There, I did. A little bit anyways. Carrying it down, blending it out. It's the drama of the moment, creating a darker sky, a deeper blue. For us, it was just a little excursion into the paint life. For him, it was a matter of life or death. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Thanks for painting along. Thanks for purchasing your Live Local Artist paint kit. Stay tuned as I continue to make more and put them out for you to enjoy, and I'll continue making these paint-alongs. In the meantime, follow me on Instagram, Facebook, X, and YouTube at Live Local Artist. Visit my website and tell folks about my journey. Come and see some videos, watch me paint some things. Later. And now we're going to paint our cowboy scarf. It's just a straight shot of that medium blue that I sent you. And you can paint it in just about any way you like. I just go with the simple blue, like that. And I'll take a little bit of this. I'll take a little bit of this red here, and I'm gonna create some, I don't know, those are just like diversions for the eyes to help pass the illusion off. The illusion that is really a cloth wrapped around his neck. I just got some of that dark blue, and I'm just putting a couple of lines in, little taps, help it feel like it's been folded and rolled. And then we're gonna put a little bit of blue jean line in right there. Ladies and gentlemen, that looks great. And so for the face, the trick is not to overwork it. In fact, I just take a brush with the wet end and then just kind of blend in whatever colors are already around there. Very few adjustments I need to make after what we've already done. It is possible to overwork the face. If you want to color the mustache, you can. I don't mind having a little bit of the older senior feel to it. He's a senior. But if you want to mix up a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow with whatever was on the brush, darker color, that blue, that red, that yellow, and then some white, and you're gonna get a variation of a brown or orange, and you can use that. Just lightly scrub it in. Just wash that white, and it'll feel better than overworking than trying to go in there and paint individual whiskers, which is the tendency. So maybe you feel like we're looking at that there, right? And we can agree. We've got a little of the same color going on there. It's no sweat there. We're talking about minute amount of paint. I'm just looking for a little bit of clean white here. I'm going to take that clean white, and I'm going to find a place here on my palette. I'm sure there's some red. Just a little touch of red like that. That was enough. Did you see that? It's hardly changed the color at all, but it's enough. And I'm going to put that in. I'm going to put it in here like so. And we're creating a little bit of a difference between the color of his mustache and the color of his skin. And now you've opened up a can of worms, because now you got to come back in and repaint is whatever you feel like you've, and I feel like his eyes would have been right here. So I'm putting that back in. Just like that. And it's too brown. It needs to be a little bit darker, so I've got to get that dark blue. I'm going to mix it with some brown, and that's going to be my, see, I'm mixing up a deep shade right here. Just the tip of my brush is all it takes. And there you go. I believe you've got yourself a cowboy. Well, big thanks for hanging in there and painting this with me. For all those that are wondering how you can reach out, you can just send me a message directly. Order your paint kit today.